Hi, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes, The Quick and Dirty, Episode 6, Looping Concepts. Please follow along. You can find this file at the GitHub repository linked in the video summary. First thing to go over is the concept of iterable and iterators. So I would just ditch trying to read too deeply into these at this point in time. I would just understand it's anything that can be looped through. So anything you can use a for loop to gain access to all of the items in a container. So it just gets very verbose, very dense, but if you're in for a wild ride, by all means. So we're going to get right into it. I've outlined here a few ways you can use for loops and then while loops, and then how you can loop through different types of data containers. But I'll go over it in a pseudo-live demo here in the interactive prompt. So I'm going to create the same list as to the left, the tried and true list of integers. So you can list them out directly or access them directly with a for loop by just doing for I in L print I. So I access them directly, not by index. So it'd be more difficult to try to alter that original list. All I get is the object. I can do stuff with it, but only while I'm in that current stack, while I'm in that current wave of the for loop. Now if I wanted to gain access to them by index position, where I can get the index position to rearrange or change the value in the original list, and while having access to that value, then I use something called the range. And this is where I believe it is primarily used. I haven't delved too deeply into what the definition of a range truly is, but this is how I use it. So for I, or index in range of length of L, print L of index. So here I use the term index just to showcase for you that it is indeed the index, using a range and then also the length built-in function on a sequence just automatically gives you the correct range of values needed to index every position in that container. So now if I wanted to change it in place, I'm going to go back to the I for simplicity. So for I in range of length of L, L of I plus equals 10. So simply put, I was able to gain access to each one of those values, add 10 to it, and then reassign it to that location. And now I have a new list, or not a new list, but I have the original list now with updated values. So those are the two ways you can access variables in a for loop. Just note that there are times and places for either. Sometimes you only want to get the objects themselves and do something with them. Sometimes you want to be able to alter things in place on the original list or container. So now delving into the while loop. So the syntax for a while loop is basically while a condition is true, continue to run the code that is underneath it. So often enough, I find myself using it with something called counter. So you set a counter to 0 for the first index position of a list. It's just a variable that you choose, and then you have it assigned to 0, and then you do while x is less than the length of your container, or here L, then you can use that x as the index position. So L print L of x. And then you have to remember also to increment it. So if you don't, then you're just going to have an infinite loop because x will always value 0. So that's something that you're going to end up doing, as we all have and will again in the future. So that's a while loop and one of the general ways to use a while loop. I find that when I'm trying to compare and rearrange something within a list, I'll often use nested while loops because there's multiple conditions you want to have met to get the final result. You can't just loop through it directly and change everything in place or linearly. But we'll get more into that when we get into more in depth of like nesting loops and time complexity. So I'll go over a few more things on how you can loop through items in a dictionary and loop through items in values and items and keyword value pairs in dictionaries here. And then I would recommend going through the rest of this document and then also doing some of the practice I have on the GitHub repository as well. So here I'm going to make a dictionary of A1, B2, and C3. So I can loop through a list of the keys for key in d.keys, print key, or I can get access to both the key and the values at the same time. So for key value in d.items, print key value. And so that's your basic intro to looping structures. Again, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes, the quick and dirty, trying to get you just around 5-minute episodes, quick blasts of Python for beginners. Join me again. Thank you.